Hello and welcome to this bank holiday edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett and I am joined once more by my co-host, Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. The light you can see shining behind him as a symbol of his week of excellent predictions, which we will come on to during the course of this show. And this week is Easter weekend. And for those of the Christian faith, that is when their Lord Savior Jesus Christ died for our sins and then was resurrected back to life. Was this week the week where Villa, as a European team, was finally resurrected after 15 years? It is at least 15 years, isn't it, since we were in Europe? But a place which has never needed to be resurrected because it's always been there is our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we have been keeping you up to date with all of the latest Villa news, reviews, reaction, previews, polls. Absolutely everything is there for your viewing pleasure and, interactive as well. So we always welcome your views. So get yourself involved with all things Villa. I mean, it's a good time to get yourself involved with all things Villa at the moment, isn't it, really? And it's also a good time to get yourself involved with our YouTube channel, Talk Trinity, whereby you can go and watch the history of Villa. Well, in the last couple of years where we've been recording anyway. And you can check out previous visual episodes. Or if you just enjoy the audio tones of our Brummy accents, then you can go to our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google. We are on FanHub. You can probably find us in some other places as well, but they haven't paid us enough to advertise them. But a intro that needs no advertisement, it needs no selling. It was already fantastic, was the events at Stamford Bridge last Saturday, 5:30, in front of the Sky Sports cameras in the UK, other broadcasters available, international, where Villa went away with the 3 points and also brought an end to the managerial career at Chelsea, at least. He'll be back, of Graham Potter. Chelsea 0, Villa 2. What were your thoughts on the game, Will? Apart from what an excellent away day indeed.
I thought it was spellbinding. I thought we pulled a rabbit out the hat, abracadabra, and poof, Potter's disappeared. It's a shame for him. I like Graham Potter. I really thought that he was going to turn things around there. And from a Chelsea point of view, I think they've acted in haste. But who cares about Chelsea except for you? I care about the Villa. Great performance, great display. We got forward where we needed to. We had our moments, as Unai Emery would say,
Yep.
And we took our chances in those moments. I mean, the pass from Dougie Louise, it got a bit of a deflection off Cucurella, but what a finish from Ollie Watkins. And you're expecting him to get his shots on target at the moment, such as the confidence of the player who scored in 6 consecutive away games in the Premier League, the first player to do so since Sergio Aguero, of course. And then that little beauty at the end, the 25-yard effort from John McGinn that nestled right into the side netting, didn't it? I mean, when you watch that from behind the goal, he's the last man back. Everybody except for Martinez is in the Chelsea half of the pitch. Pretty much everyone's in the Chelsea penalty area. And the way he hits it, that's going in as soon as it leaves his boot. What a goal. He brings back the iconic celebration. The away fans go mad. And it was a perfect away day out. It was a great victory over a team who Steven Gerrard said should be giving us a hiding, only a few months ago. It goes to show the transformation under Emery, because we don't fear playing anybody. We feel that we can get something out of every single game. When you look at the stats from Emery as well, the third most informed team since he's joined. You know, I think it's the second most informed away team since he's joined. The number of direct goals that we've got is the most in the Premier League since Emery's come in, and two of those were against Arsenal, who are the league leaders. What a fantastic job he's doing. But Stamford Bridge, yeah, that was all right, weren't it? That nice little 2-0 away day victory in the capital.
Yeah, it was a good week for long range finishes from outside the box, wasn't it? Really, and I think in terms of the Villa performance, you can delve a bit into cliche in terms of the classic away performance, as it were. But I think in the first half, in particular, those first 10, 15 minutes, I mean, you mentioned Watkins' goal. I mean, he had a chance in about 5, 10 minutes before, which was probably easier than the one he scored. But in terms of the confidence to be able to brush that aside, because there may have been a feeling, I think, especially in previous seasons, which I think was a bit of how far Chelsea have fallen and how far Villa are rising under Emery. You mentioned some of the stats there, that there would have been the feeling, even after 10 minutes, that chance of, oh, shit, that was our chance. We kind of, it's going to be a bit of a, as Steven Gerrard would say, a hiding now. So, but the fact we went toe to toe with Chelsea, we imposed our style on them in the first 15, 20 minutes of that game. It wasn't wave after wave of attack from Villa, but when we had the ball, you could tell there was a plan of what we were going to do. You could tell where we were targeting Chelsea's weaknesses, and we've talked about it before, and no doubt we'll talk about it probably more during the course of this episode and future episodes as well. In terms of, there's one thing you can say about Villa under Unai Emery is that they have a plan, and they look like a team who have a plan. And it doesn't always work, but you can tell the thought process behind it, and you could certainly tell that the first 20 minutes against Chelsea, that we've done the work on the training ground of that's where we're going to hit them. And also in the Emery style as well, the goal was a bit of a nice ball. You could say a more direct style, but we were trying to play through Chelsea. And the Emery aim is to be able to do that for 90 minutes. It will take time to be able to do that, especially Chelsea. They've got good players. They've had a poor season, but they're not terrible. If they had said it, if they'd fought for their £8 gazillion that they've spent to spend some of it on a striker, then they might be slightly higher up the field. But still a very good team, and we imposed ourselves on them, especially in the first half. The second half was the classic away day performance, you could say, in terms of defensive discipline. The thing we've commented upon about Emery time and time again away from home is defensive shape is very well drilled in this team. And we had our one chance and we scored. And I think, that's kind of if you're adding all the elements together, how to get 3 points away from home, it's a formula, as you say, it's working. We won every away game under Emery apart from one, at Man City, where, that was just a terrible 45 minutes. But
we won the second half. We won the second half.
Yeah, to be fair, even then, even in adversity, there was triumph. But there was certainly no adversity at Saturday evening at Stamford Bridge. And I think in terms of, it's easy to pick on players when they score because that gets noted on the stats. You can say, oh yeah, they scored, so they must have had a great game. Sometimes that was the only thing they did, or went in off their backside, or kind of it deflects maybe the rest of their performance not being up to par. But I think in terms of the two goal scorers on Saturday, Watkins, we've touched upon the effort, the attitude, the willingness. He certainly now looks like a player who believes in himself. It wasn't necessarily, that he was always moping around the field, but I think there was, lots of Villa fans, ourselves included, had questioned whether he was that 15, 20 goal a season striker. Can't argue to the contrary at the moment, and he looks like he believes it. He always had the talent. It was just whether, in those moments it was going to go his way. But he looks now like a man who expects to score every time he goes on the field, which is fantastic. And John McGinn as well. Obviously, I am going to take any opportunity to wax lyrical about John McGinn. Again, a player at the start of the season. We had discussions on the show about whether he should even be in the team, let alone captain. Even the most ardent McGinn fan will have to admit they didn't quite see coming the elevation in his play since Unai Emery came to Villa, especially in the last month or so. And I think it's down to a number of factors, I think. I think it's partly the ability was always there, I think. So I don't think he was a terrible player and he's being coached into something brilliant. But the coaching is a massive part in terms of somebody's taken his game by the scruff of the neck, like really analysed it and gone, this is what we want you to do, which is what Emery's done with all of the players. And I do think there's the change in tactical position, I think has helped him, because there was always the talk amongst Villa fans of, oh, he plays attacking mid for Scotland. Why can't he play there for Villa? He's wasted kind of a bit further back in the midfield. The reality was there wasn't place in the Villa starting 11 for McGinn to play in that position, that cam, because we had, Coutinho, Buendia, just to name two players who that was potentially their favoured position, especially under Gerrard. They'd rather play there. But Emre has managed to find a position for McGinn in the team that allows McGinn to utilise his attacking instincts that he has more opportunity to display for Scotland, whilst also having him in a position in the field whereby he can demonstrate more of what Villa fans are used to McGinn, the shithousery element of it, I suppose, that they're getting stuck, it's the intangibles, Villa performances in the past, in the last couple of seasons when Villa have played well, have generally been when McGinn has got stuck in, which is a very inexact footballing science, which probably isn't going to win you very many matches in the long run, which is why Villa have been a bottom half team. But it's a foundation piece of a team, having people like that. We've talked about it previously in terms of we need more players like that in the team, but you've got that base and you've added a bit of tactical awareness and you've added a bit of getting him further forward. I think it's a great job by McGinn, obviously, but an example of a great job by Unai Emery, and an answer to a lot of managers will Gerrard as well by the end of this, his managerial reign was basically shrugging the shoulders of, well, the players are crap. I need more players. I need more money. What can I do with these? You mentioned in terms of the Chelsea game at home, where it's like, well, they got all these players, they got all this money, we should get hammered by these. Just demonstrates that, yeah, having no money at all, eventually will lead to kind of a slow decline. But it doesn't matter how much money you've got or how little money you've got if you've got somebody who knows how to coach on the training field. And just two of those players there we've just mentioned, to me, demonstrate perfectly why take a good coach over somebody who's good at writing a check any day of the week. And we'll check our balance and we'll see we got 3 points.
Well, like you say, Unai Emery, he's been a wave of positivity, hasn't he, really? He came in without any fanfare. Let's be honest, there wasn't much behind him, not like the O'Neill days, swarms of fans at Villa Park. And Unai Emery, so far, is the manager who is the most likely to get us that European adventure again since Martin O'Neill. I think it was 2010, wasn't it, when we were last in one of the European competitions.
Busy losing to Vienna like 18 years in a row. Something like that.
But you really feel that we could do it this season. And if we do it this season, that's gonna lead to a frantic summer in many ways, or an exciting summer. But you're right, Unai he's come in, he's identified the players, he's sat down with them all for very long times, told them what he expects of them, told them what they can do as well, giving them that belief. The John McGinn interview at the weekend was very interesting, where Unai Emery told him, "Well, actually, I think you could play as a striker." And the very first time he came on for Emery, he came on as a striker, and he lasted 10 minutes before Emery moved him. But John McGinn's got that hunger, he's got that desire. He had that belief in himself. He knew he wasn't a bad player, whilst others were starting to question him. And it just goes to show that even the cheapest of players can be the standout performer on a star-studded pitch. 2.5 million, John McGinn,
Yeah.
man of the match against Chelsea, against Kovacevic and all their big money boys. So, yeah, he's definitely flourishing with life under Unai Emery, as are many of the players.
Yeah, and I think in terms of the players as well, when you have a new coach come in with their new ideas, there's usually a few who are like, nah, don't really fancy this. This isn't the way I want to play. Who's this guy kind of with his new ideas? And I think in terms of Emery, when he came in, I think the large feeling amongst, well, can't speak for the Villa fan base as a whole, but based on kind of the conversations I was having and kind of what I was seeing, I think there was a feeling of, okay, on the paper, this guy's record is good. He's, clearly got something about him. I think the way he was portrayed by the media, especially the London-centric media, when he was at Arsenal, I think has left kind of an impact on people's perceptions, because he kind of got painted as a bit of a clown, really, by the London media at the end, whereby, cup final, Champions League or nearly Champions League qualification after Wenger. I mean, obviously we're biased because we've seen him do a very good job, but I think there was always a feeling that he hadn't done as bad a job at Arsenal as what had been portrayed at Arsenal. And I think a lot of the groundwork that he did at Arsenal has been taken on by Arteta. And see, Arteta's a very good coach himself, and it's not saying it's nothing to do with Arteta because he's taken it on to the next level. But I do think Emery started the process at Arsenal, and Arteta, example of somebody who is a good coach rather than a checkbook manager, which helps. But I think the players at Villa, when they came in, it's always a contrast in terms of managerial styles. Usually, if somebody's a bit more kind of go and run around a bit, you switch to a more tactical guy. If a tactical guy fails, you kind of get motivated. It kind of goes between the two, usually in managerial hires. I think
Don't know what you're doing to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think the group of players at Villa, when Gerrard left and Emery came in the relegation zone, game against Fulham, last Gerrard game, I kind of mentioned it on the show before. Very few times I've watched a game of football where I've seen after 30 seconds exactly what's going to happen in this game, which was at Fulham. It's like we are going to get banged here, and we did. That was an absolute shambles of a performance. But I think
doing us favours, don't they, Fulham? When you think about it, they're always doing us favours. They beat us in the playoff final. Thank you for that, because we got NSWE in, and they beat us under Gerrard, and now we've got Unai.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We should probably have an annual charity match. We won the Peace Cup like however long ago it was. This would be like something the Goodwill Cup, kind of something similar. But
you don't have to name it after me. But
we'll share the credit. But in terms of Emre coming in as a tactical manager, I think the players were ready for it in terms of just wanting somebody to actually bring a bit more tactical awareness, a bit more nous. And I think the fact that, as you say, he went and sat down with all of the players, went through all of the analysis that he had done before really having seen them play in like real life or even a game for Villa. He'd already done that work. And the players, quite a few of the players have mentioned it. They're like, wow, this guy's serious, in terms of... And I think from a player perspective, if you've got somebody who has that authority in terms of I've got this dossier. I think 20. I think old attitudes can sometimes die hard in the English game. I think 20 years ago. I mean, we talked about Wenger just then. When he came in, it was like, oh, he wears glasses, or professor. Oh, what does he know? Kind of wanting players to eat properly. What a kind of insert words here. We've come a long way since then. But yeah, certainly in terms of players actually being intelligent and wanting to learn about the game. Oh no, what crazy witchcraft is this? But all of the players, I think, have gone on board with it. I think that is linked to what happened under Gerrard, where I think in terms of any semblance of a tactical plan disappeared out the door with Michael Beale, I think in the summer. And players have responded to that. And yeah, I think I haven't been aware of any players, as I say, coming out going, that bloody dossier. Who does he think he is? Come and tell me I have to cut in on my left foot. When I'm in this position, he doesn't know anything about football or kind of anything like that. All the players are wanting to learn, and you can tell that on the field, which is the most important place, and the evolution of Emre's Aston Villa, you could say. We noticed at the start the defensive shape was the first thing you could see that had been worked on, and that's remarked upon by many managers as that's the simplest thing to fix. Usually, get yourself in a defensive shape, get yourself solid, get yourself sorted, make yourself hard to beat. That's the easier bit. I won't say easy because it sounds like anybody could do it, but that's the easier bit than transplanting your attacking style of play, scoring more goals than the opposition, which is ultimately, we bring you the hard hitting analysis and you need to score more goals than your opposition to win a game. Absolutely crazy analysis there. That's why you're tuning in. But that's the next bit. And I think we talked about in terms of the home games early on in Emre's reign of that was the bit that was going to take time. And even then, the fact we've managed to score a goal in every game under Emery, it is a great achievement to him. And talking of players who have believed in Emery, kind of wanted the opportunity, and vice versa, Emery's given players the opportunity who didn't have them before. That brings us nicely on to events for an older vintage, what we would call Vilbert Street, for the actual real name now, King Power Stadium, on Tuesday night. Leicester 1, Villa 2, and a late goal from who had been a bit of a forgotten man, Bertrand Traore. Another absolute screamer of a hit from outside of the box. And in terms of, I didn't get to watch the game live, but I was keeping track with it. So I knew he'd scored. I knew how he'd scored. I knew the build up to the play. But I watched the replay of the goal about 6 times because even though I knew exactly what was coming, every single time the ball was coming, I was like, nah, he's not scoring from there. He's not hitting that on the first time. And then he's absolutely nailed it into the top corner. But before we go on to the game, generally, great story for Traore, isn't it, really? And you can see how much it meant to him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, whether it was a Peter Kay, John Smith's advert hit, or whether it was actually meant, regardless, it was fantastic. And it's like you say about the application of the players and the will and the desire. Traore was back at Villa Park Bodymore, receiving treatment for a month before his loan was ended. He was telling Unai that he wanted the opportunity. Unai saw that we had a player who could potentially fit the mould of player that he wanted to bring in when he wasn't able to. It's given Traore that opportunity. And whilst he hasn't had many since coming back, that goal on Tuesday night is going to be a catalyst, you would think, for further opportunities. Leon Bailey, it'll be a wake-up call too. The fact that John McGinn's been playing out on the right of midfield and playing incredibly well, but has also been playing well in the central midfield role as well recently. just to show all the options that we got. But yeah, Traore deserves it. And I saw a stat that was the first goal Bertrand Traore has scored for the Villa since games had been opened up to all of the fans. He scored, of course, in front of a limited few when we beat Chelsea 2-1 last game of the season. Brilliant goal that was as well. He obviously scored that mesmerising goal that nobody quite realises how he did it away at West Brom. Thank you, Bertie, forever in my heart. But that one against Leicester, that goal against Leicester the other night was something else. And it was a goal worthy of winning any game, wasn't it? And I suppose now the question is that enough to get him a start come the weekend? I know we'll come on to that in a minute or two. But speaking of goals, and going back to Ollie Watkins, like you say, a few months ago, when he made that run, got onto the ball for the opener, you'd have been thinking, oh, God, no. Anybody but him. I wish it was Robin Olsen with the ball at his feet, type thing. What a slick finish to hold off two defenders, beat the offside trap, and just tap it under Everson. That's a goal of a man who's feeling confident, as was the goal against Chelsea. Ollie Watkins, take a bow.
Yeah, I mean, that was a determined finish in terms of there was a lot to do when he got the ball. And he was just a man who's, no, get out of my way. I'm getting to the goal. And those goals are sometimes just as satisfying as the long range belters. The fact that it trickled over the line and nobody was going to be able to stop it, in terms of the placement, the positioning of it. Just, checking your watch, waiting for it to go in. Time to make a cup of tea. Excellent. And in terms of the performance as a whole, Leicester equalised just before half time.
Good goal.
Yeah, depending what side of the fence you want to sit. Good finish. I think it's fair to say. Not the best defending, but Barnes has that quality in his locker. We talked about Barnes before on the show, funnily enough, when we played Leicester before. And we think he's a good player. He's just been as Leicester have been inconsistent as a team this season. He has been inconsistent as well, but he has those moments of quality in his locker and demonstrated that with the finish. Then in terms of talking about Easter weekend, belief, faith, whatever you want to talk about, those moments, those intangible moments that make a difference, the sending off of Dewsbury Hall just before he was going to be taken off, subbed off. I think in terms of
can't stand him.
I mean, the ultimate question, well, the ultimate answer to the question, was it a red card, is we don't care. But I think it was a red card, but it was two stupid tackles, really. I think the second one, I do think if it happened in the first 10 minutes of the game, he probably would have got away without a yellow card. But I think the fact that you've just gone and clattered somebody 2 minutes before, the ref's on high alert, so that's not the smartest play in the world from them. But that turned, I'd say it turned the game in the sense that Leicester, any real hope of them getting a goal was kind of tempered by, we need to stick with what we got. And in that situation, when you've got the extra man, the incentive, the expectation is to go and attack, all guns blazing. And we talked about it's easier to coach a defensive shape. Then sometimes playing against 10 men, it's cliche, can be more difficult playing against 11. We didn't change really the way we were playing in terms of Emre has, from an attacking sense, his approach of the way he wants to play, possession, probing, teasing the opportunities, waiting for the opportunities to come type football, which when you are playing against 10 men, sometimes as I said, the expectation is to go and attack. And it takes a lot of belief from the players to stick with that system. And a thunderbolt later, 3 points later, it just adds more in terms of the fans. Previously, why aren't we attacking? Especially at home, the players going, we need to go and do this. Need to keep this winning momentum. You get the goal, you get the 3 points. Fans believe it more, players believe it more, manager believes it more. Just all adds up, and I think in terms of, you could say, was the game plan for somebody to smack it in from 25 yards? Well,
Yeah,
no, I don't think it was. But you could say the way it kept the pressure, just kept that wave of pressure, bringing the player on at the right time. That is a big tick. In ticking the player's book for belief, ticking the manager's book for belief, and well, based on the fan videos from the away end, big tick in the fan box in terms of the way they celebrated that goal, and keeps that momentum going.
definitely. And you need to get the away fans on side, don't you? You need to get the home fans on side, and it's down to how you play in the application that you put in, and we're doing that in every game now. And you mentioned about playing against 10 men. It's stark contrast to the previous times we played against 10 men. When you look at Leeds away, and we seemed to settle for the draw and nearly lost it at the end. The game at home to Crystal Palace, where Unai Emery said, yeah, we should have done better when they went down to 10 men. We should have created more opportunities than we did, and we didn't. So they're obviously learning from that. And Unai, will have sat down with the players after the Palace game and said, right, if we play against 10 men again, this is what I expect. And I would imagine that even at the end of that Leicester game, he'd be on the bus home with his laptop out going. It wasn't quite what I wanted, but it was better. I got the 3 points, but I would have wanted more of this and this and this and this. And the next time we play against a team with 10 men, even if it's for 10, 20 minutes, you'll probably see us scoring a couple of goals. But yeah, the applications there, and I think that's the biggest thing more than anything else. There's that sense of belief coming back, obviously, with the chance of getting into Europe and all the talk of Europe. It's a shame that Sky Sports only shows the top 6 and then shows the bottom 12 in the Premier League at the moment. They don't focus on that 7th place finish. But when you look at where we are, and you realise that actually we're 6 points behind Man United and Newcastle, who are joint third. Yes, they've got a game in hand on us. You start to believe we've got a lot of very winnable fixtures. We've got some tough ones as well coming up, but I don't think there's any way you think we actually won't get anything there. All of them, you feel positive that we could get something, and it's just nice to have that feeling back around our club.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the fixtures still to come for Villa, there's 2 games against teams who you'd say are comfortably below us, one of which we'll come on to in a moment. Forest on Saturday. The other's Wolves, who we play away first weekend of May. The rest of our games are against teams around us in the table. We've got or teams who are in the top echelons of the league. So in terms of after Forest at home, we've got Newcastle at home. Obviously, they're flying high in third at time of recording. We've got Brentford away. Again, they're a team just below us at time of recording. We've got Fulham at home, team just below us, time of recording. We've got Man United away, 4th in the league. We've got Spurs at home. They're still in a Champions League hunt. We've got Liverpool away in a 4th place hunt, if you believe certain esteemed pundits. And we've got Brighton at home. Again, a team having a fantastic season as well, just above us in the table at time recording. That is a lot of high pressure games. And you mentioned the Sky point. I'll touch upon quickly. Chelsea away was obviously on Sky. We've got the Newcastle home game, which is on BT. At time recording, and the last few games of the season haven't announced televised coverage, but none of the other games Villa have got are televised in the UK. Our overseas listeners can find channels to watch them. Is that a good or a bad thing that we're not going to be in front of the glare of the cameras in those big games?
It doesn't matter, does it? There's that many scouts and analysis that you can do that, teams will be able to see how we're playing and whatnot. But we will be on the telly a lot. We'll be on the telly. The Liverpool game will be put onto the telly. The Man United game will be put onto the telly. And it could very well be that they're putting it on because it's Liverpool who are going to finally beat little Aston Villa and put them in their place, or Man United will. I mean, end of the season against Brighton, I wouldn't expect that to be on the telly because the relegation battle is going to be tasty, isn't it? And so is the title running, you would imagine. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see more. I don't think it's a help or a hindrance, as I say, because of modern technology. But we'll find out. We'll find out, dependent on whether those games are on the telly and that. I think, regardless of whether we are, it doesn't matter. We're Aston Villa, and Unai Emery has got a plan. He's looking up at those top six teams, and he's going to go for it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Unai Emery had got this planned all along for us to be challenging for Europe this season, whilst we're all sat in the stands and at home and listening to podcasts, of course, the podcast of choice being Talk of the Trinity, and thinking, yeah, as long as we get 12th or 11th this season, I'll be happy. Mate, we're that far away from the relegation zone and we can smell Europe from where we're stood at the moment. There's optimism in the air, whereas I think with those games that are left, had we have still had Gerrard in charge, would have been relegated by now. Forget the running. But
yeah, I mean, we'd be one of those teams at the bottom. We'd be one of those eight, kind of, battling for our lives. And you'd be looking at that running, and you'd be thinking, "Oh Jesus,
catastrophe."
Yeah, indeed. And I think in terms of that running, if we do qualify for Europe with that running, then there's no way it can be described as a fluke or lucky or anything like that, because there's some tough games with the running that we've got. And, I think the fact we're in this position with some optimism, it's testament to the job that Emre's done, really.
I mean, you could say that the running that we've got is tricky, which leads us on nicely to the Tricky Trees at the weekend. Nottingham Forest, they've had a lot of upheaval or a lot of rumour this week with Steve Cooper apparently on the verge of losing his job again, only for the board to come out and say, no, he isn't. I mean, if they were going to sack Steve Cooper based on this season, then I think they need to give themselves a reality check, because he's done a fantastic job for Nottingham Forest. More so at home, not the best away, and hopefully that continues past the weekend. Is Nottingham Forest one of those potentially tricky games, do you think?
Well, applying what is known in the trade as the Will Forest law, then this has got an away win written all over it, because in terms of, you have very focal in terms of teams who are doing very well are teams Villa tend to beat, and teams who are struggling tend to be teams who get a pick-me-up when they play Villa. And looking at the run that Nottingham Forest have been on, no wins in the last 8 games since the start of February, when they beat Leeds 1-0 at home. Mentioned in terms of the home record was the thing that originally kind of elevated them above the drop zone. Now it's the thing that's keeping them, in touching distance, because during that run of 8 games they haven't won, 4 at home, 4 away. They've only lost 1 at home, but they've drawn the other 3. So they're a hard team to beat at home. But those wins that they were picking up nearer kind of the midpoint of the season, turning into draws, and the away form has been poor recently. In terms of the away fixtures, their last away win was the first weekend of January, where they beat Southampton away. But apart from that, in terms of the overall away record during the course of the season, you're gonna like this. The team with the worst away record in the league this season is Nottingham Forest, with 6 points they've gathered away from home, equal with West Ham, but West Ham have played a game less away from home. And would you like to hazard a guess in terms of goals scored against goals conceded at time of recording for Nottingham Forest away during this season?
Oh, mate, well, look, I'm going to say that they've scored I'm going to go between because it's a lot to think about, between 12 to 15 goals away from home. And I reckon they've conceded probably around 28 to 32.
5 is how many they've scored away.
Bloody hell, I was going to go ridiculously low, but I didn't think it'd be that ridiculous.
In 14 games. Maths fans will tell you that significantly less, that is less than a goal every 2 games away from home,
Nice.
which is the lowest goals scored away from home. West Ham have scored 7 away from home, Southampton 9. By comparison, Villa have only scored 16 away from home, interestingly. But 34 goals conceded away, which isn't the most. It's the second most. The team conceded the most goals away from home is Bournemouth with 38, although 9 of those were against Liverpool at the start of the season. So a goal difference of -29 away for Southampton. 6 points. I have obviously the one win I mentioned away at Southampton. I haven't gone that far back to see whether the other 3 points were 3 draws or another win. But regardless of whether it is or not, to use a phrase, that's not very good. And as you mentioned, in terms of the talk around Steve Cooper this week, it was the most lukewarm vote of confidence that's been released for a while, in terms of, we're not sacking him yet, but we want change immediately. So, no pressure there. I think in terms of at time recording, they are 17th in the table on 27 points, equal with Bournemouth, who are on 18th on 27. Everton 16th, West Ham 15th, all on 27. It's real screwball scramble, as we mentioned down there. I think for Cooper, if he is in charge at the end of the season, if Forest stay up, I think that's a good season for them. I mean, it doesn't matter if they stay up on 27 points, for frankly, if everybody else loses the rest of the game. Just staying up is a fantastic result for them. But pressure is on them going into this game. Form's terrible. It's your law, so I'll give you the chance to pontificate on it further. All the factors are pointing towards Will's law coming into full swing on Saturday. What are you thinking about the prospect of Nottingham Forest? Are they that bad away from home that you're thinking not even we can mess this up? Or are there elements of this Forest team where you're thinking, we've got to be careful there?
Well, look, you're putting me on the spot, really, aren't you? Because I do always say that if we play a team who are on a good run of form, that we will be the one to end it or to do well against them. Look at Erling Haaland at the start of the season, how brilliant he was doing, and then Mings pocketed him. Yeah, he scored against us.
Still scored.
Still scored, but Mings pocketed him.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good performance.
You look at some of the other teams that have come along, and we've done well against them and beaten them. And there's those other teams where they're crap, we're mediocre, and they beat us, or we're doing very well and they beat us. I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to disagree with with my alter ego on this occasion. I think we're too good, and that could come back to bite me quite firmly on the arse. But I do think that we're too good at the moment. I think that Unai is so meticulous and so pre-planned, and will be getting the best out of the players, that this is a game that we win. And I don't think that Nottingham Forest do get anything against us except maybe their sixth away goal of the season. Um, and the thing is, at the moment, with whoever he puts out there, Ashley Young at right back, whether it's Boubacar Kamara or John McGinn in the middle, or whether it's Bertie, Bailey, Wendia that's partnering Ollie Watkins up front, or even Big John Duran, I think that we'll have enough. And I think that the players have got that much motivation inside them that they will see us home. And the crowd as well. I think, it's taken a while to get the home crowd on side, hasn't it, really, with the new passing game and passing style, because you want instant results, and some people want that beautiful football. Other people want us to win at all costs, and other fans don't really know what they want, but they don't particularly like what they see, and there's still a majority who are quite happy to wait patiently. But how long will they wait? I think because we're seeing, we're bearing the fruits of our labour, that the home fans are now on side, very much so. And it could take, like you did against Bournemouth, until the last 10 minutes to really make that impression, and to wait for a team to tire. And that could happen again this weekend. But the fans will be right on side up until the last minute, in the hope that we can add to Nottingham Forest's away day woes so far this season.
No, I mean, I'll give you a couple more minutes before I come back for the formal score prediction. So you do have a moment to decide whether to go against a lifetime's worth of work in terms of such predictions. To give you a bit more to throw into that mix, in terms of the form going into this game, Villa have won 5 out of the last 6, with only a draw against West Ham. With the 3 games before that run, we lost, but we get to determine the stats, so we get to suit them as we see fit. But you mentioned, in terms of the lineup for Villa and the potential players who Emre may be selecting to start at 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon at Villa Park. Do you think Troy starts? We raised the question earlier on in the podcast. Now is the time to answer. Do you think he'll start? Should he start?
I mean, it all depends on Booba, because if Booba starts, then no, John McGinn deserves to start on that right wing role. If Booba doesn't start and John McGinn's in the centre, then I don't know. I mean, I don't think scoring 1 goal necessarily is enough to start. I mean, it gives him the confidence and whatnot. I'd rather bring him on and I think that would lift the crowd more, and that would lift the team more, and it would lift him more, with that impact substitution. But then there's part of me that thinks, Wendy is probably going to start up front with Ollie Watkins, and rightly so. He deserves to be up there. I know he's only got the 1 assist this season, which came against Leicester, but he's industrious. He works hard for the team, as does Watkins. Jacob Ramsey and Leon Bailey, you wonder whether we'd be better off having one of them as a sub and bringing them on, so that they can use their space, they can use their pace to really get at that Nottingham Forest back line.
Well, the pace could mean that they end up in space.
It could do. I think if John McGinn's out wide, it's only one of them that starts. Obviously, if John McGinn's in the centre, I think both of them. Bertie, for me, starts as a substitute. Bring him on, let him score another banger of a goal, and we can discuss the next game whether we're gonna start him against Newcastle.
Yeah, but I'd agree. I'd have Troyer on the bench. I'd probably bring him on earlier than what he did against Leicester. Maybe get a half hour under his belt. Got to build him up back to full fitness, and a great goal But as you say, and as we touched upon at the start of this show, just scoring a goal doesn't necessarily mean you should be in the starting lineup. And yeah, bring it back gradually would be my view. And as you mentioned earlier, just leave him on the bench as a bit of an incentive to Leon Bailey and some other players, that their place in the starting 11 isn't perhaps as assured as what it may have been previously. But in terms of the Villa team, the Villa tactics, I think we fairly safe to say we're going to be playing kind of a 4-4-2. We're going to be playing up as patient. Yep, I got there in the end. You were patient for me to say patient. Attacking football. Thrown in those stats there. The Villa's run is very good. To go with the run of Forest, which is very bad. Score prediction time. What do you think the final score is going to be when the ref blows the whistle round about 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon?
There's part of me that thinks that there's going to be a lot of goals in this game, but then I remember who the two goalkeepers are at each end, because Keylor Navas is still a top quality goalkeeper. It's more about the defence in front of him and can he keep everything at bay for as long as he needs to. Nottingham Forest will score. I think that with Morgan Gibbs-White, playing as well as he has this season, not a £40 million player, but playing as well as he has.
Decent player.
Yeah, in his new confidence, we've been the under-21 captain for England, and with Johnson up front playing quite well as a striker recently. I think they'll score. I think they'll get one goal against us. However, I think we will earn a hard-fought 3-1 victory over Nottingham Forest, and I think Ollie Watkins is going to come away with another brace. So yeah, 3-1 Villa for me. Could easily have said 4-1, but I'm going to say 3-1.
No, you're keeping a goal in your back pocket for use at a later date. And well, it could be, in terms of that one goal, could be transferred over to me if Villa do score 3, because I'm going for a Villa win as well. But I'm going 2-0. I'm going that we are going to keep a clean sheet and a couple of goals. I think it's going to be that patient play we've talked about. I mean, and that will eventually wear Forest down. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 0-0 at half time, and then there was a couple of goals in the second half. Maybe one of the aforementioned substitutes will come on and get the job done. But certainly, if it is 0-0 at half time, I don't think we'll be panicking, and we'll carry on doing what we're doing. And I think eventually the pressure will tell, and we'll come away with the 3 points. So there you go. That's usually a sign of bad news when I predict a win, or I'm more optimistic.
If we lose, I predict a riot.
I'm going to say I picked us to win a few times this season. In terms of in terms of maybe this as a final stat. You were debating about whether to go with your usual thoughts or whether to go with a more optimistic. In terms of the last 2 home games, Bournemouth at home and Palace at home, I predicted us to win both. So throw that in your mix.
I imagine that you haven't predicted us to be in the European spaces at this point, as my predictions will have predicted.
Though, funnily enough, in terms of, obviously, if you haven't listened to our Premier League recap and predictions part 2 episode that we put out a couple of weeks ago, go and check that out. I mean, yeah, certainly some stories there, and in the lesson of we just didn't learn. Some predictions we made for the rest of the season are already turning out to look slightly dubious, but go and check that out. But
this one is bang on.
But in terms of the original predictions that we made at the start of the season, in terms of Villa's placement in the league, I had as 8th, and you had as 7th, I think, from recollection. Yep. So it could be by hook or by crook, through a way which neither of us predicted at the start of the season, we might end up actually being roughly right. Well, one of us may be exactly right, but in terms of if we're seventh, I was only one off, and if we're eighth, you were only one off. So, very close. So we look like, if that happens, that we knew what we were talking about all along.
Yeah.
And what a great way to end the show. And if you want more examples of us knowing what we're talking about, then go and check out our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, where we are keeping you up to date with all the latest Villa news, previews, reviews, polls, anything interactive will be there for you to get involved in. You can check out previous episodes via our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, or you can listen to us. I mean, in terms of if you are going to game on Saturday, no cross city trains are running north of Birmingham New Street, so you might be taking a longer route to the game, bit more time on your hands. Our audio versions of Talk of the Trinity podcast are just what you need, along with probably a drink or two. But you can check us out on Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google. We are on Fan Hub, and you'll find us. If you have that will, which well, I mean, we have the will here on the show, but if you have the will for more will, then you will find us, and that is too much will. So I'm going to pass over to Will immediately for his final thoughts.
Yeah, cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the listens, all the watches. As Baz said, if you need a cure for insomnia, you can listen to us on Apple, Spotify, Google, Deezer, Geezer, Freezer, all of those ones. We're on YouTube as well. But the big question on the back of two great wins is, can we make it 3 in a row? And will the Lions of Aston be marking their territory up the Tricky Trees this weekend? Let's hope that we don't piss it all away. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. I'm Villa till I die. He's Villa till he dies. Up the Villa.